The dawn was unusual because it came up with a tremendous rose-coloured light which flooded all over the city for quite a period of time and then disappeared. I suppose general attitude was a surprise that you were still there when the last bomber went.
On that terrible night, Coventry endured 11 hours of bombing by over 400 German aircraft. The raid began at around 7 p.m. on the evening of 14th of November 1940. It was a bright, moonlit evening which provided perfect conditions for the bombers. Around 30,000 incendiary bombs fell on Coventry that night, along with 500 tons of high explosive and 50 landmines. The destruction was immense, and the flames could be seen from miles around. Some Luftwaffe pilots who followed in later waves of the attack reported being able to see the flames as they crossed the channel. The targets were said to be the city's factories, but Coventry was a compact city and the bombs fell indiscriminately on factories and homes alike.
We heard it. I tried to stand up. I found my feet I didn't know, but they were both smashed. And my coccyx, and of course I couldn't get up, so when the all clear went, 2 men carried me over to my mother's and I went to hospital with my mother from Horsley Hall Road. And she told me I was a widow. I said, Mother, I can't be. I said, Norma must be in another hospital. You must get my brother to go and look. She said, darling, no. And they left my mother to tell me that I was a widow. I just didn't believe her.
It was clear by the middle of the 1930s to government that they were really going to need the help of the Coventry car manufacturers if they were heading into another war. The government met with Coventry manufacturers, some of which agreed to begin making aircraft parts and engines. New factories were built, all paid for by the government, and they were called shadow factories. One of the biggest was outside the Roots Group factories, where they had the Humber and the Hillman plant. By 1939, the Roots Group had constructed over 14,000 Mercury engines and employed well over 1,800 workers. The night of the 14th of November was devastating for Coventry. The city's industrial capability led to the city being a target for bombing raids throughout the war, but the 14th was especially bad. The worst affected factories included Daimler's Radford factory, which suffered severe bomb damage. The Elvis car factory was almost entirely destroyed during the Blitz, but the main target, the aero engine factory for the company, survived with only minimal damage. Roots' Humber and Hillman factories took 26 direct hits over the entire complex, but thanks to the skill and determination of its workers, it was back up in action within 6 weeks. By 1941, the motor and aircraft industries in Coventry accounted for over 60% of its workforce.
I had a baby sister who was only a few months old during the Blitz and caught pneumonia while going down an Anderson shelter and died.
People took refuge where they could, in public area shelters, Anderson shelters in back gardens, or even under the stairs. The official figures vary, but the death toll is usually given as 568 people, with over 1,000 people injured. But this is likely to be an underestimate. The dead were buried in a mass grave in the London Road Cemetery a few days later.
We heard the bomb that was actually going to hit. I can remember my father saying, you know, this one's for us. But it goes quiet, very silent. But it hit the house next door. So they're terraced houses. The house next door, there was nothing at all left. And our house was just a shell. But we were still alive under the stairs.
Then we came back and through the centre of town, and that was terrible. They'd cleared sort of like just a path through, and there was all this rubble each side and bits burning. You could even see hands sticking up and things like that. Some of those, I can remember one was burning, but there was quite a bit of rubble and, well, not a bit, there was a hell of a lot of, the centre was more or less flattened, just odd outlines of buildings and things like that.
What made the raid so infamous was the destruction of the city's medieval cathedral, which was completely devastated by fires caused by the incendiary bombs. The aftermath of this catastrophe was captured by the artist John Piper, who arrived in the city on the morning after the Blitz, while the fires were still burning. Piper was an official war artist and had been sent to the city to record the scene. He spent some time making sketches and taking photographs and produced this powerful oil painting as a result. A few weeks after the bombing, the provost of the cathedral, Richard Howard, made a Christmas address to the nation, broadcast on BBC Radio. He called for forgiveness for those that had brought this destruction to the city of Coventry. This would prove to be the seed for the cathedral's work in promoting peace and reconciliation around the world. Just 2 years after the war, Coventry became twinned with the German city of Kiel, and in 1956 it was also twinned with Dresden. The cathedral was rebuilt in a new style designed by architect Sir Basil Spence, but the ruins of the old cathedral were left as a poignant reminder of the events of November 1940.
Because I'd had 1 or 2 narrow escapes during the course of the night, but as I say, I'd by then perfected the art of leaving my bicycle at high speed, which I suppose had contributed to a certain amount to my safety. A few dents in the woodguard, but oddly enough no punctures, despite the debris and damage around the place. You cycle where you could, otherwise you picked it up and ran to the next place where you could get on and cycle off again, you know.